So, hi and welcome. This is Angela. And this is Authentic Love, a video training. And the subtitle's Beyond Loneliness to Heart Connection. So I'm just waiting to make sure that the screen's loading and we are live. So thank you for joining today. This video training is just about an hour and a half. So if you have to pop out, make sure you watch the recording. And I've got some special tools today and gifts. But the training's actually different to some of my other trainings. Hi and welcome. Different to some of my other trainings. We're not doing any meditation or sitting still exercises. There's some incredible information that I'm sharing, and I have a special gift for you today. And what motivated me to do this video training on authentic love, and calling it Beyond Loneliness to Heart Connection, was that there is a lot of loneliness out there in the world. We're going to look at loneliness later. There's a difference from being alone to experiencing loneliness. And also, what is the purpose of that in our lives these days? Why is it happening on our planet with 7 billion plus people? What is authentic love for you? So today I hope you will enjoy an exploration of what authentic love can be for you. And we're going to look at 3 particular myths that may interrupt authentic love in order to flip them on their head. And I'm going to share a couple of classic examples that people might struggle, whether you're looking for authentic love or a relationship, or whether you're in a relationship and it's driving you crazy and you're looking for something that you can't seem to get. So thanks for joining. I will have a Q&A at the end of the training, so stick around for that. And if you put comments on the chat, I will look to questions, but because I've got quite a bit of material to cover, I'll feed those questions in once it comes into where we're at with the material. So let's jump right in. So I've got a fancy new system now that I can actually have a PowerPoint to show you. So let's just start with what we all sort of dream about with authentic love. And I've just got a question here about authentic love for you. Would you like to come home to someone who's inspired to spend time with you? Someone who will stick through the difficult times and be there no matter what and have fun. Even if you're socially awkward, shy or insecure. So for those of you who don't know much about me, I actually was, when I first started my relationships, very shy and very insecure, and I had a dream of love. And that's what I share with my clients and with my partner as well. And it's been my passion to do so. So I'm looking for those of you who are feeling the same, like you want this deep experience, but you feel kind of odd or goofy and maybe not so cool at achieving what you want in your love relationships, and you're finding a disconnect from what you're experiencing in your love relationships and what's actually happening in your love life. You might also be alone, or you might be in a relationship that seems to be somewhat not working for you. So let's go to what might be covered in today's call. There's a lot to be covered. So I want to just briefly run down what we're going to learn in general. You don't have to be good with people in order to be good at love. So there's this perception that if you're going to be successful in your life or in your love life, that you have to be confident, you have to be cool, you have to be, you know what you're doing. No. In fact, I've found quite the opposite. I work with a lot of clients who have low self-esteem, but they're actually quite gifted. So we're going to look at that. Why is that so? And we're going to learn how you can profit from difficult emotions. So difficult emotions are going to be a huge piece of relationships when you go in the long haul. And most people these days are kind of dropping the bag and running when it comes to the hard stuff. So we're looking at how to profit from them in relationships. And even more cool, you just need to learn how to listen to your inner world so you can express your emotions. So a lot of the people I work with, you might be insecure or you might doubt yourselves, but they're sensitive, right? So here's the secret. Some of the most sensitive people are actually the best at communicating their emotions. So I want you to walk away today with a real curiosity about that. If you have low self-esteem and you're critical, just consider what of that piece that you're critical could be something that you're not actually looking at and devaluing and debunking. What we're going to cover are 3 important things. We're going to look at how to stop thinking that things should be different in your life. We're going to understand how you limit your value and then how that limits your potential for love. And we're going to finally finish with a very special, simple strategy I'm sharing of how to communicate with yourself in a loving way that moves through difficult situations. So they could be personal, like self-esteem issues you might have, or confidence, or feeling like you know how to move forward situations, or difficult situations in a relationship where you feel like you can't get your needs met or express yourself. And if you can watch the whole video, my gift to you is a simple download. It's in the description of the video and I'll put that link up. At the end, it's a simple refocus on heart guide that will allow you to connect instantly to your heart without needing, to meditate or sit down. So some of you might know that I do a lot of meditations. This is more, oh my God, something's happening. What do I do? Oh, look at the guide. Oh, that's what I'm doing. That's the behavior. What's the first question to ask myself and what's the next step? So it's a really simple guide and I'm very happy to share it with those of you today who go through the training because you'll get some of the gems from the training. I don't have time to cover everything today and I usually reserve this for my clients working one-on-one, but the guide was just a very powerful strategy I wanted to share with everyone who's joining the video today. So let's look at what goes on when you're experiencing loneliness or disconnect or a sense of you're not really feeling that love that you're looking for. So maybe you found yourself wondering, why am I still alone? Maybe you're with someone and they don't acknowledge you, or you feel they don't get you, that you're not able to connect with them. They might be one of those people that really want to spend time with you, but they don't return your calls. Or maybe you're going with your family, ongoing drama that sort of quietens down and then bubbles up and comes up to the surface. So you might find yourself in any of those situations. And today I'm just jumping into what the real problem is. The real problem is if you know deep in your heart there's another way. Because you wouldn't be worried about being alone. You wouldn't be worried about your family stuff if you didn't know deep in your heart that there's actually a better way. Okay, so that's the real problem, that somewhere inside there's this knowing, it could be better. That's the real problem. What's the cause? Okay, it's a little bit more tricky. So the cause is more tricky because you can't see it. Okay, often we have these symptoms. Why am I feeling this way? But we can't see. And why can't we see? Because when you can't see your value, how you help people in your relationships, what you give to them, what you inspire them with, what uplifts them, what literally gives the person you're in relationships with a reason to be interested in you or attracted to you or want to be with you. When you can't see it, when you're just focusing on they don't pick up my phone calls, they don't listen to me, they don't do what I want, you're focusing on the dysfunction. It's because we can't see what our value is. So we're focusing on where we're small. And when we focus on where we're small or limited or feel frustrated, others can't really engage with our greatness either. They won't see our value. They won't see how special you are. They won't feel the potential for change. And what we're looking at in that final piece today, how to lovingly communicate with yourself, that's the secret that we're really going to build today, about how to shift when you find yourself in where the way you might be limiting yourself or limiting your value. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about when this piece when we go through the three pieces about how you're going to stop seeing things should be different, and how you limit your value and that limits your potential for love. But when you see your gifts, when you see your assets, when you claim your value, people naturally will be attracted to you, who will naturally support and celebrate and champion that value. Now, I'm not going to say that it's a black and white situation. So it doesn't mean that one day you wake up, you see your value, you own it, you claim it, and everybody who walks into your house or everybody you interact with outside is going to just think you're amazing. It doesn't operate that way. You will always have challenges. But when you claim your value, you can rise to the challenge with grace. And sometimes you're going to fall over, but you'll pick yourself up. You'll realize, oh wow, that didn't work. And you'll get back on your feet. So let's look at the three big beliefs that limit our value. And these are really, I've worked with a lot of people, so I've filtered down to three peak beliefs that really kind of summarize where people come to. And some of you might come to all of these. I certainly am number two. So the first one is, do you really deserve that love that you're looking for? So you might just, spend a lot of your energy focusing on, well, I'm not really deserving of this. So you keep on focusing on avoiding behavior, avoiding relationships, avoiding maybe confronting issues in the relationship. Number two is where I'm a master. How could you possibly get it? Like, I used to compare myself negatively to everything and everyone. It's pretty hard to compare yourself to things that are non-human, but I would. So I'm a master of self-criticism, and I've overcome that. But the disease of how could you possibly get it is, I've seen get worse through social media and the fixation on how we look. Now, that was always a problem when I grew up, but it's become worse because of airbrushing, and I'll talk a bit about later about social media and how it's separating us and we're comparing each other by things that aren't even real. And I used to compare myself to things that weren't actually human or things from past history. I used to compare myself in ways that were really ridiculous, but now I'm seeing the same behavior with social media. So the third one, which is really big and very innate to everyone, because we're all going to lose someone we love someday through just death. But if I get the love, it's going to be taken away. And this can not just be death, it can be you when you were young, you had an experience and you had a good friend at school and suddenly your family's moving to another state and you lose that friendship. So we all go through this. You might have an animal that you lose. You might have a relationship that you lose, okay? But it's a huge innate fear. It's there for all of us. It doesn't go away. So I want you to entertain that some of these beliefs are not something that your emotional inability to calm yourself down or manage your emotions created, but it's a human condition. And once you start to face them, they actually become doorways to a deeper, authentic love, because you're not running away from them and you start to address them in manners that can be playful. You don't have to be so doom and gloom about it. I have a joke with my partner about you're not allowed to die, and we've got to a place where we can talk about it. And it's true, I have a fear of it, but I'm not hiding it. We joke about it, and we also do some precautionary measures, which are basically checking in on each other to make sure that we're taking precautions. So everybody's got this last one, but I've noticed that a lot of people, because of divorce going up, because of relationships breaking up, being in a relationship doesn't mean you're in that relationship for the whole of your life. That's not a given anymore. We used to think it was. It's not. So we have this in our culture. And I'm going to tell you that that's something that plagues people in the background. And we're going to look at how those beliefs are running through other methods in our society or especially in the self-help community. And I'm going to debunk a few of those myths today. So let's look at what we're going to do to debunk after we debunk the myths with that guide that you can download today. you're going to get a simple structure. It's just see the behavior, the pattern that takes you to perhaps one of these beliefs or one of these bad habits you have of focusing on your smallness. And we're going to connect to heart. So if you're looking for more heart-based work, I've got a plethora of stuff on YouTube channel, and when we work one-on-one, I work with meditations as well. If you're not into meditation, so the simple guide is just going to tell you to connect to heart. So we're going to look at intuition today. If you think you're a novice at intuition, great, because that means you don't have any perceptions of it, which often perceptions about intuition get in the way. And with that simple structure, the guide that you can download, we're going to look at the 4 parts of self. So those 4 parts of self, if any of you watched any of my other work, that's looking at the 4 parts of your body, which are your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, and your soul. So there's 4 parts of yourself. They're all working all the time. It's not like one goes to sleep and the other one wakes up. They're all interacted. They're all really smart and they all work together really well. So that's powerful, right? So if you understand that one of them's sort of trying to get your attention, guess what happens? This is what happens. You actually become happy. This is the secret that I think a lot of people don't understand. When you recognize, say if your mind is getting too critical, that's great when you recognize it. It's not great when you're criticizing yourself or your friends or your partner. It sucks actually when you criticize your partner. Because it'll come back to you. If you criticize your partner, you're going to feel that come back to you. Usually your partner will take it out on you some way. Or you'll actually feel like, you'll feel the energy of criticism. It comes back to you. And people who've been in a relationship long enough know what I'm talking about in terms of a feeling. It's like when you have an argument with someone, they'll never forget what you've said, right? But if you can recognize I'm getting critical and stop and go, okay, check in with your heart and your intuition, what's going on, and take a heart-based action, that's when you get happy. Happiness doesn't mean, this is a perfect Disneyland experience. No. Okay, so let me tell you about my Disneyland experience not. And how I learnt about love. So here on the screen it's got a little bit about my background. I've got 25 years in healing and dance. I was a dance performer. I'm a certified relationship and spiritual coach and a certified meditation teacher. Oh yeah, and the School of Breakup. So let me just explain that big breakup. The purpose of the School of Breakups was that because I was a performer and I felt fine on stage, I had really great experiences with my body. In my healing work, I had great experiences with clients and also my colleagues in dance. And I felt confident on stage, but in my personal relationships, I felt so awkward. That goes back to what I shared at the beginning, feeling very socially inept and really critical of myself, to the point where I felt almost crippled when I had to be intimate too as well. So I tried these relationships and they didn't work and they didn't work and they didn't work. And then there was the big breakup, which some of you may know. It's like the breakup that really gets to you and treats you to the biggest lesson that you've ever had in your life to that point. Doesn't mean you're not going to get more, but at that point, I was about 38 or 40 years old. So that was the breakup that I went, that's the big lesson. So that was part of my schooling on love and relationships and why I do what I do, because I'd spent about 10 years trying to work out how to become good in relationships, knowing that I wasn't, and feeling very uncomfortable in that. So feeling uncomfortable is never a limitation. In fact, I am going to share with you today, those of you who feel awkward, there's usually a sensitive part of you that's hiding because for fear it's not going to be enough or strong enough, or that somehow you'll stuff it up. So let's look at that big breakup and what it taught me. It's basically I couldn't run away from myself any longer. Finally, I had to face it. And, I did try to run away, and maybe you've tried this with a breakup. I tried doing, the energy work and the self-care and moving countries and being away from the person. My girlfriend rescued me, thank you, told me to come and live with her so I could get some headspace and be nurtured, and did all the things, the cord cutting, the ceremonies, writing the letters and burning them. If you don't know all that stuff, it's all of the self-help work, and it didn't quite stop, and it was quite devastating until I saw this piece. This is why the big breakup was my deciding moment. But I saw the sole purpose of the relationship. So this is the thing that may not quite make sense for you, but at the end of this training, I'm planning it to become a lot more cogent for you. When you know the purpose of a relationship, you may not see it as the sole purpose, but the purpose of the relationship, to see who you really are, that's when you stop pining for some life or something that's not your destiny. So we all know what it's like. You want to be in a relationship, you get the relationship, it doesn't work, and you somehow think there's something wrong with you. Why can't I have a relationship? Why can't I find the right one? You focus on that, and you focus on that until you get, this point is what stopped it for me. I saw the purpose of the relationship. And in another video, I've gone into a lot more detail about that specific relationship. I'm going to move on today to some more material about the sole purpose of the relationship, how it turns up in other situations. So for some of you, it's going to be like, the sole purpose of the relationship? That sounds really spiritual. It is. Because it's not even, it's not something you have to sit down and meditate to, but it's a realization in the heart. And believe me, I was going crazy. I never thought I could be free from the crazy cycle of thoughts and emotions. But when I saw the purpose of this specific relationship, I realized that the two of us had divergent paths, and we weren't actually meant to be together because we weren't able to physically fulfill both of our destiny or our paths, our career paths certainly, and our emotional fulfillment paths, which had nothing to do with actually our compatibility, but it's actually where we were meant to be in the planet, which was really interesting. We were in different countries, and we ended up in different countries. And now, so many years later, I can see that because I'm in a different country from that person. But at the time, I was trapped in this cycle of negative thoughts. So let's go more into what is this sole purpose of the relationship? And it's knowing how your relationships help you to know who you are. So that enables you to then find the relationship your heart is looking for. Often we have relationships where we think we're playing a role that we wanted to fulfill, that our childhood or our teenage fantasies, we had this idea of, I want a partner and we're going to do this together and we're going to fulfill this together. Or you meet someone and they have all the right qualities and you think this person can fulfill your dream. But the sole purpose is actually, how is this specific relationship helping you to know and embrace who you are? So this is particularly poignant and important for those of you who are, for example, you might be thinking, I'm a very spiritual person, but how do I combine my path with someone who may be not spiritual? I hear this a lot from people, and I didn't understand it. Actually, I got quite confused because for me, if you're a spiritual person, then whoever you're attracting to is someone that's going to help you grow. But some people separate that out. They think if you are a spiritual person that you need to have a partner who's going to focus on those spiritual things. And that is one of the biggest separations that's been created by some of the personal development industries. Everybody is spiritual. Some of us do it in different ways. Some of us are computer programmers, and some of us are timber designers or paper manufacturers. Some of us are analysts. Some of us are teachers. Some of us are people who are in the service industries that just welcome you with a smile every day. Everybody has a role. So for those of you who are seeing a relationship as somehow not spiritual enough, I really challenge that concept you have that somehow that person that you're attracting is not meeting that side of you, because that's a clue to your soul purpose. There's some piece about your purpose that you're still not embracing. In fact, you might be running away from it, avoiding it, or judging your purpose as somehow not enough, and that's why you project it on this partner. So let me now go to some of the case examples where I've discovered this specific law. Well, it's a principle, let's say, because I'm going to some laws later of the universe, but the principle of seeing the purpose of every relationship and how it changes your relationship with yourself. I'm giving you one example that if, for example, if you think, oh, I'm a spiritual person, but my partner's not spiritual enough. They don't understand my spiritual path. They're not supporting me. If you've got a partner who's not supporting you, there's an aspect of your purpose or your career or your application, your ability to fulfill that career that you're doubting or criticizing or have a judgment about. So look at that, because that's a big clue about your appreciation or lack of appreciation or understanding of your purpose, or a limiting perception or belief about your purpose. So that if you face that limiting belief, that will change the way you see yourself, and then you'll get on with your purpose without focusing that energy on your partner. That's a big one in the spiritual and the self-help community. But I want to go on to some of the case studies of why people are alone, and I'm going to talk about some of the statistics here, and I'll look at some other case studies. And if you're watching and you've got a case study of your own that you want to pop in to the comment section, like you've got a situation in your relationship or you're dating and you're finding that the person is responding in a way that's less than ideal or less than what you would like, then pop that in the chat. But I want to just review these statistics on loneliness, and I've got the question here, were we here to be alone? So these are just a few statistics, there's a lot more. Half of all Americans feel lonely, and 25% of the USA and UK population live alone. That's majority, that's over 47 years of age, that bracket, but it's also younger ages, but that's the majority of that age bracket over 47 is getting living more and more people are living alone, and that is getting larger, that age bracket, because people are living longer and there's more increase of separation in relationships. And the other piece is that people with social connections have a 50% lower risk of dying early. So that's pretty astounding. There's different studies around that number, but some studies say that loneliness is higher risk for all sorts of diseases. You're at higher risk. So were we born to be alone? No. We're social animals, but our society is building more and more of these situations where we're ending up in lifestyles that we're alone. We actually have more people on the planet than we've ever had before in the history of civilization, and we have more people living alone. And then also we have an increase in loneliness, the feeling of loneliness, from the 16 to the 25-year-old bracket. So younger people, even though they've got this social media, they're feeling more lonely as well. So I just wanted to point out that being alone does not mean you are lonely. So some people are fine. I've got people I know that are alone and they're at the point where they're fine with it. But sometimes I've got people that they're alone and I think they're avoiding certain things. So I'm just asking the question, since it's a global phenomenon, and I know the stats are different in different countries. So in Occidental or Western countries, the stats of living alone are higher, but it's increasing in some other countries as well that have been traditionally very family-oriented countries or living together countries. So what could be motivating this great change? It's one of the greatest changes. I personally feel it's, along with women in the workforce, it's one of the greatest changes since the Industrial Revolution. that we have more people living alone drastically changes how we live as a tribal species or as a species. So I put it to you that this phenomena of loneliness or people being alone and discovering loneliness means that you finally do have to accept who you are. It may take longer for others, and some people may take the not so positive path and not accept it, not feel positive about it. There's also high rates of depression because of this, right? But there's an opportunity where you actually are forced to finally accept who you are, break out of what is acceptable, meaning you don't have to live up to society's standards, end behaviours that keep you separate. So you've got a chance to finally crack. What is it that keeps you separate? What beliefs from childhood or things that you thought you were supposed to grow up and do, the midlife crisis point, you just might have it earlier. You might have it when you're 16. And you go, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be that way. The difference when you're 16, though, is that you're going to have less resources to reach out to, usually because they've shown in the studies that 16 to 24-year-olds are not reaching out when they're struggling. So there are, of course, hotlines and things for the people to call, but that's a phone call. It's not a human being for them to reach out. But this really loneliness phenomena, which some people say is becoming an epidemic or is one, it's an opportunity, right? And it's a big one because it's global. It's not like, oh, it's just, another study on cholesterol. This is something that's real. But it's a chance also finally to end those habits where we let the emotions take over. And if you look at our culture, social media is extremely dominated by emotion. It's rampant. It's like a teenager that's just allowed to do whatever it wants on a school night, as we say in Australia. We're operating our society culturally like that. And when you're alone, what happens is you get a chance to just look and reflect. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't supported enough in that, and they're reflecting, I believe, perhaps in ways that aren't so affirming for them. So we're going to look at different ways to do that. And before we go on, I wanted to also just look at what the case studies are, so we can look at what the soul purpose is for different relationships. And I'm specifically looking at how we can, those soul purposes are always to do the 4 points that I've got on the screen. They're going to finally help you accept who you are. They're going to break out of what is acceptable or what you think society thinks is acceptable. You're going to stop behaviours that keep you separate. You're not going to blame somebody else or stop seeing people or let old family dramas continue, because you're going to go, hey, I don't need to be sitting in my emotions here. And that's the final biggie, letting your emotions dominate you so you either don't take action or you go to addictive behaviours or just avoidance. So let's look at those case studies, and I'm just going to start sharing 3 classic examples. So if you have a situation in your relationship that you would like to share, or something from your past where you're trying to work out the soul relationship, put it in the comments section and let me know what you're experiencing. These 3 examples I'm sharing are classic ones, so I'm not sharing any particular case studies, but these examples I find are very repetitive. The first one is I get approached by people who want to know if they've met their soulmate. And I say, yes, you have. But that does not mean that they will stay, okay? Because a lot of people have this discussion on the internet about twin flames and there's this person you're destined to be with. A soulmate is anyone that you develop a bond with, that your soul chose to meet up again for whatever purpose, right? And that purpose you got to discover, and that's the relationship at the soul level. Now, our emotions want it to be romance. So I get a lot of women in particular, sorry to the women, but it is more the women than the men, who come to me and say, I've got this guy and he really is into me and he's really saying all this stuff, but he's disappeared and he's not in the country anymore. And I'm like, yes. And what is he teaching you? What does that teach you? But the women are constantly trying to make something extra. They're trying to grasp for something like that twin flame thing, which I don't actually teach on twin flames. So that's an experience that they're trying to understand why this person would come in and say how wonderful and how much they love them and want to be with them, and then disappear. And here the soul purpose is, okay, you ready? You need to find your value and move through any illusions you have that your value is dependent on this person or anybody else, actually. But specifically, that's the purpose that they're serving for you. They're making you feel something valuable that you feel like you're not without them. So they've come in and then they disappear. Some people call it ghosting, but what's the purpose of having a ghost? Ghosts deliver a message, right? A spiritual message, like the ghosts of Christmas past. Well, they're showing to you that you're so hungry or desperate or needy for some validation because you're not feeling your own value. You're actually refusing to see your value, actually. You're practicing behaviours that will limit your potential because you won't see your value. You're refusing to see it. You're making that person the secret to your value. So the other piece is whenever you get that sort of whirlwind romance where they're in and they're gone, there's always nuances, and I have more detail about this in my coaching work when I look at your specific connection with that person. But it's to recognise that the relationship is not a romantic relationship. It's actually something else going on. But because our emotions, especially for young women, and I think some men are like this as well, we're raised to really believe romance is something that takes us away and from this misery that we're living into a magical place. And it can. But that particular person isn't going to stay. They're there to help you go deeper. And most of us stay at the surface because we're too scared to go below. But it's about your value and seeing that it's not a romantic connection. And that may take you a few times. And the confusion comes in always. Believe me, I've been there, done that, when you have a physical chemistry with the person. So just accept that physical chemistry is seducing you to see the deeper layers. It's not always about a sustainable relationship. Don't try to make it something it's not. A man or woman will stay and return phone calls and be present when they're ready to be with you no matter what, okay? So that's the first case. I have number two. So these are the ones that I find really interesting because they're usually people very dedicated at relationships. So they maybe have had a few relationships, so they've really put effort. However, there's usually one or two or three things that really don't work. So they might be dating someone for like 6 months and they've just got that one thing in the person that really doesn't work for them. So they're constantly focusing on that. They're focusing on the one thing. It can be two or three, but there's this one thing that constantly irks them, and they go over and over it and they mull over it So these are the people that some people call fussy or too picky. And I don't see it like that because there's something else going on. That's not the sole purpose. It's because they're really, they can't make choices in life, and they have a judgment about, if I make this choice, if I choose this partner, if I stay with this person, disaster will happen. Now, I've had a bit of a opposite use of this experience where I thought, if disaster's going to happen, I will walk right into it and just see what happens and see how bad I fall, because if I fall, there's nowhere lower I can go. So I saw the other side of this in some of my connections, but fortunately they weren't that very long term. What I've noticed for the people that are really trying to make a connection last, but very doubtful and critical of the connection potentially being long term, it's that there's the sole purpose is a deep fear that if they choose and it fails, they'll have to wear that. They're just terrified of doing a certain choice and disaster being the result of it. Now, you also may know people who have made a choice and disaster did result. Now, we see it as disaster, but imagine how the person experiences that. So our soul is sometimes terrified of certain choices for whatever reasons that they've come to really let go of judgment and go beyond that fear of making a choice and perhaps it not working out. From the soul point of view, any choice you make is wonderful because you're learning, you're growing. But from the personality, we can really fear it, especially if the soul carries an old energy about that. So sometimes these people have vulnerable childhoods and you didn't feel safe and you're terrified that if you commit to something, it's not going to work out. There's a real judgment about things messing up if they stick to something. So that can be fear of commitment, people say, but I think it's also more simple. I think we get to obstacles with our partner or potential partner or someone we're with for about 6 months and we start projecting the worst into the future. That is what your soul's trying to get you to see, how you project the worst and your fear around that. And what you need to do is develop talking skills, which is what we do in the coaching of how to communicate those fears to your partner. And I've seen people who think they're not good at communicating within a few sessions be very brave and just say what their concern is. And because of that, from the very beginning of the relationship, when problems started to surface, things were brought clearly out without any drama and deeper connection was formed. So in a way, choosing to not choose results in disconnect and actually separation from your partner because of fear of choosing one path. So the final one is for more people who are in a relationship and it's like you've got a niggling thing in the relationship that always bubbles up. So it could be a 5-year or 10-year relationship or a 3-year relationship, or it could be sooner, like 6 months. You seem to go well, but there's that annoying discord or issue in the relationship. And that's what I call the pebble in the shoe. You know, you can't, it's always there. You know, you shake the shoe and it moves and you think you've got it out, but then it's still in the shoe somewhere. It's that kind of, it's the argument that the couple keeps going through over the years. It could be about how you raise the kids. It could be about a choice you made back in, the 90s. It could be something that just keeps resurfacing. And this one is a very big one because it manifests in many, many ways. So, for example, if you had a couple where one partner had to work and one had to stay home to look after the kids, or some choices were made where one person in the couple sacrifices something in their life in order for the family. Sacrifice is huge in our modern relationships. We don't know how to do sacrifice and have a modern life. We want to do everything. We want to make the kids sandwiches, drive them to school, and bring them to the after school activity. You have to be like super mum and dad and do everything in modern relationships, which is quite a lot if you think about how much is expected. When I grew up, it was more simple. The TV was your babysitter. And we're starting to see that a lot. We're seeing a lot of criticism for parents who allow the computer to be the babysitter. But the expectation is just as damaging. The expectation that somehow these parents have to work, have 2 jobs, do this, have a house, have this, have a PlayStation, have a blah, 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 blah. It's too much. And what we're experiencing when you're in a couple and there's that one thing, it's all around what are you sacrificing for this relationship. So sacrifice can come up in many, many ways. It can be the typical thing of, I don't know what your generation is, but my mum had to work and raise the family. So she sacrificed a lot of her energy to do the super mum thing. And now we're seeing that's going through both genders in different countries. We're seeing that's being shared differently. But we're seeing also that a lot of couples are not talking about when they feel frustrated or they're working in a career that really isn't what they want to do, but they just do it for the family. Now, in the past, our parents never talked about that. They just worked. But this issue I notice comes out in many, many forms. So if you've got for example, the ongoing argument, it could be a feeling of I'm not able to live the life I really want. It could be that you're a carer for a family member and you've actually sacrificed a piece of you, but you feel guilty because you want to look after that person, but there's a part of you that feels like you've sacrificed. So sacrifice is huge, and sacrifice has become a little bit of a not so great word. There's wonderful forms of sacrifice when it's done in a manner where you're giving, but relationships, all relationships, parent-child relationships, really engage with you to see, am I sacrificing something here that I can't no longer sacrifice? So you'll know the classic example. A couple stays together for like 10, 20 years for the kids. Can't do it anymore. Can't be in this relationship, but they sacrificed, or in some ways they didn't sacrifice. They just gave up a part of themselves to stay in the marriage because they wanted to be there for the kids. So modern relationships have this very interesting experience for the soul to really say, I can't do this anymore. Previous generations, they just stayed together. They just suffered and whatever. But we are looking at sacrifice in such a profound, different way. If you've been watching the 8-part series with Carolyn Jacobs and myself, we look at sacrifice in some of the episodes because it's no longer the energy that our modern world wants to operate in. And we blame people for being selfish. We're not looking what's underneath that. We're looking for this liberation. So we no longer put people into servitude without them being committed to it, or without them agreeing, yeah, I'm going to give up this part of myself because I really adore you. And if you look at a parent, that's what they do. If you look at a carer, that's what they do. But sometimes we need to understand, especially if you are a carer or you feel like you've sacrificed a part of yourself to be in a relationship, what is that giving you? Because it's so important to explore and to see, after you've come out of that situation, how do you rebuild a sense of your perspective on that past and then moving forward? Because sometimes I've noticed, especially with carers, they get into a place where it feels like they didn't have an identity, could be a parent as well, and they also feel that transition out of being in that situation is a very torturous period for them. That's all about your soul growing and learning and expanding. So if you're in any of those relationships where you're feeling you have to compromise, I give power to you, because you really are showing people that relationships aren't all about pretty, romantic, la-di-da stuff. People have no right to judge you, and that you can also be an example to others about what are you getting from that experience. There's a lot of people now, I've got a few friends who are worried their own kids might not look after them. In our generation, we were expected to look after our parents, and that's just not culturally expected anymore. So I wanted to bring in those 3 examples, and if you're watching the recording, please, in the comments, if you've got a specific thing you're like, well, I don't get it. Why is this breakup, or why is this relationship situation in my life? I'm a parent and my child's doing this to me. I mean, teenagers can be really amazing teachers and trainers of moving out of the emotions, perhaps also moving out of the critical mind and creating the language that actually says, okay, this is it, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So both from the side of the teenager and the parent. So we're going to move to what are the other pieces that perhaps makes us feel more judgmental and critical than we need to be, for sure. And I'm just going to move forward to this question to really look at the next part of the training, is looking at limitations that have been operating in the self-development community or New Age community or whatever community online that looks at the soul or development of the self. And this is the question that came as I was looking at that. Do you want to enjoy who you are, or do you want to feel less? Because if you use those two questions when you look at any self-development work, it'll give you a really good barometer whether the work is actually enabling you to enjoy who you are or making you feel less. Anything that makes you feel less, there's something there to question. Anything that wants you to enjoy who you are, there's something to naturally gravitate to. So that's what I'm going to look at. There's 3 myths that operate in a lot of spiritual work, but also in the general pop psychology, self-development, Wayne Dyer community, law of attraction community. And that's one of the myths that we're going to look at right now. I love law of attraction. These are the 3 myths we're going to look at. These myths really are, the way they're interpreted by culture in general is debilitating. So let's get rid of them or turn them around. So the first myth, law of attraction, if I ask for what I want, then I should get it. The second one, negative feelings are bad. No culture really has celebrated negative feelings, but our modern culture is particularly not interested. If you look at any writings from previous centuries, we had a lot more exploration than we do now. And this one's perhaps my personal favourite in terms of myths to really upside down. You need to control, change, or make your body better. So I'm going to give a shout out right now to a woman on social media. I think she's an activist, but she's actually a model and a writer and an actress, Jamila Jamil, who has the Instagram account I_way. And Jamila's story is incredible because this is another example of looking at what's her purpose and how did she use it to find her own value and help others at the same time. Because this is the other piece you don't get. When you are underscoring your value, you're missing out on inspiring and lifting others to experience their own amazing self-value. So Jamil only recently, she's a model of Indian background in the UK, and a couple of times she's been airbrushed on social in her modelling career because of her Indian nose. They've made it airbrushed to be a bit more Caucasian, and that was very hurtful to her. And she has been really kind of devastated by that, but it was only recently when the Kardashians had a certain image on their social media accounts that had numbers over their bodies. That I don't know all the sisters. I'm not really up on modern culture, except for people like Jamila. And the numbers on the Kardashian bodies, she was thinking, oh, what's that? Is that their net worth? And then she found out that the numbers represented how much they weigh. So she was so horrified that social media was putting numbers on women's bodies to measure and compare them by how much they weigh, that she started this own Instagram page, which you can go and check out, I_way. And it's about how you are not how much you weigh. And on it, there's a bunch of people now with their photo, their face, saying, I am this, and they feature every asset of them, their best assets that they enjoy, that they love. It's really uplifting. And Jamila's now been interviewed, and this is the piece. She's finding her voice. She's always wanted to be a writer. This is huge. She's seen as an epidemic that young women in particularly, and women in general, and young girls are being distorted and going through this mental just horrid thing inside about what comparing themselves to images that are not even real. She's been against airbrushing before, but the Kardashians with the numbers on their bodies was it. It's like being stamped like a cow. And that is the thing that has to be brought attention to. You are not how much you weigh, but you're just not your physical body alone. There's no need to measure yourself about this. And I've been teaching on this for about 20 years, but now what I see on social media is making it more and more important, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Jamila for the brilliant step forward she's doing, and she's finding her purpose as well, which is inspirational to all of us, that when you start to look at how are you inspiring others, you will find your purpose, you will see your value, And as Jamila's saying, she's not just this model, she has an opportunity here. So let's look at this first myth. And I've got some of the notes here, so I'm not going to read them all. But basically, when you're thinking that the law of attraction is just asking for what you want and then you should get it, it's not working with the universe, it's working with your personality. That's like a child. We want things when we want it, and we want it now. And then we end up suffering because we think, oh, I'm not good enough because I didn't get it. No, the suffering is a clue that you're still in comparison. You're still thinking you should be different. Okay, so that's part of our modern culture. It's not your soul. It's not who you really are. It's something you're learning, but it's definitely not the law of attraction, and it's a trap. And I'm encouraging you today to just understand, if you think there's something wrong with you when you're using the law of attraction, it's not you that is wrong. It's your emotions that are asking for what you want, and your mind. And that's fine. But you've got to recognize it's your emotions and your mind that's asking. You're asking from the universe to receive. And that's the universe then going to show you what's in your emotions and your mind. So today I'm introducing this law of manifestation. Works with the law of attraction, right? Now there are 12 laws, and I don't teach on the laws. I've got a teacher. If you want to learn more about the laws, message me. I can hook you up with my teacher, brilliant teacher on the 12 laws of the universe. And I also know law of manifestation coach as well. So I can hook you up with those people. The law of manifestation works with the bigger picture of your soul. And your higher self, actually. So it works with what's best for your soul, not what you think you need. And the law of manifestation is where we connect to your intuition. So that guide that you can download today is going to give you the guide that will help you hear and feel your intuition. So if you're ever in doubt and your emotions are not clear, your mind's criticizing, that's not your intuition. Your intuition will just know. So believe me, I've gone through the yo-yo of my mind, and I've gone it, and I've done it, and I've done it, and I've done it. That is just your emotions and your mind still playing tricks with you. It's not your intuition. So don't feel bad about that. Just understand you're learning. You're on your path to listening to your intuition. But believe me, you use your intuition every day. It's just bringing your awareness to it and seeing how it happens naturally. That's why it's so important to focus on where you're naturally strong. So the law of manifestation, along with the law of attraction, allows you to see what exactly in your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions may not be in alignment with your dream of love. I'm just moving my picture around here because I've got this fancy technology to move me around. I dance around the law of manifestation and attraction. So how to use those, it's an art. You've got to be aware first when you're not using them. So law of attraction, when you are not getting that relationship that you want, or when you're having problems, those limitations and how you learn about how to address them are going to make you really attractive. So let me give you an example. I was breaking up with my ex. I was using some of this work unconsciously at the time. I didn't know about the laws. See, I was using my intuition then, even though I didn't know I was. And I was realizing, oh, I get it. We're breaking up because this is not meant to be. And I started to be really cool about the breakup. And suddenly my ex was like, well, maybe I don't really want to break up with you because you're really cool. And I actually do like you. And so that seduced us, both of us, because I got sucked into the illusion again, that maybe there is something here because our romantic desires were still operating. We still wanted the relationship to have life. And that's normal. But at some point, the grown-up in me, my big soul said, yeah, but there's much more available to you. But I became really attractive. So that was really weird because at first I had to be broken up with. My partner at the time had wanted to break up with me and I didn't. And then I suddenly became attractive and I got really confused. So if you've been in that boat, understand there's something bigger coming, better coming. So this is where you get to really hear your intuition. Back then I didn't know any of this stuff about the difference between my intuition and my emotions. I kind of did because I knew things flowed well, and I knew when things didn't flow well, it was the emotions out of control. But I didn't realise it. So today we're getting very clear. When it's all kind of wonky and weird, that's your emotions. Intuition is just that voice that just goes, no, we're doing it. And if you work in any industries like sales or sports, or in a busy environment, you have to use your intuition daily about what to do. Sometimes your intuition won't be particularly make sense to you. And they're the things to start watching as well. How do you use your intuition in a way that is very positive for you? So let's go to the second myth. And I'm going to move through this quickly because I've addressed it already. But these are the questions, negative feelings that come up are limitations, right? So we often get trapped and think, no, I don't want to really feel this way. And we get grumpy because we're feeling bad. So here are some questions, and you can write these down. When you feel negative, what are you missing? What is not being given to you? Why are you angry, sad, or disappointed? Now, you might be feeling some other feelings, but in the guide, that download that I'm offering you today, it's got specific questions that will help you work out what you're feeling. So these are the clues about what's not being acknowledged, about 1, your value, 2, your service to others, and 3, your ability to make a change. So write those down. What are you missing? What is not being given to you? Why are you angry, sad, or disappointed? I've got some more questions on the next page, and I'm just sort of whizzing through this because I want to get to the meat of the final step 3. So when you ask questions about what you're feeling, it actually starts to help you to see what the fear is behind them. And then it creates a habit. So once you see the fear, that's when you can create the habit to manage the fear. Easily. You don't need to go into any deep stuff. If you've had relationships or you've lived with yourself long enough, you know your problems. You know your habits of negative feelings. You know them. They're familiar. It's like an old friend. So just see it, and then you have to have a habit. Now, this is where I see people fall down. They don't create a habit. They just avoid the fear, or they just go into, this feels really uncomfortable. I don't want to feel this. And guess what? I feel that too. When I do my meditations and I see something, I don't really love it either. But what I enjoy is by facing it, I'm learning. And perhaps I'm a nerd and I love that stuff. But I'm learning as well that there is nothing really dangerous about the fear. It's just a fear. And it's not even really me. It's a fear I've worked with. But is it really what I want? No. So this is the extra question. What is your belief about your ability to make a different choice? So a lot of us just think, oh, I don't need to change. We get defensive, we get arrogant, or we get into a place complacency. Like, yeah, well, what good has it done me so far? We get attitude. We have certain attitudes that doing something different, why? I mean, they haven't done it. Why should I? I don't need to change. These things are very embedded, and they're important to just see. And the final question is, how much are you willing to face any fear of not being enough, able or deserving? So somehow we think, gosh, if I look at how I'm such a bad singer, then I'll never be able to face the public. But anybody who has taught themselves to sing have to admit they're bad. Then they get lessons, and then they get better, and they practice, and then they can sing in public. It's a process, but if you didn't actually acknowledge you're bad, you're not going to change. So the same goes with any other experiences that we have. If we aren't willing to see it, that's okay, but you've got to see that you're not willing. And that's a big piece. We often think negative feelings are bad, but one of the reasons they're bad is that we're not actually willing to just say, I really don't like this, but I'm going to have a look. I am willing. Some of us are very stubborn and don't feel bad about that. Just start to see it. What happens is, and I do meditation, so I get to witness myself doing it. It's like I'm really kind of stubborn, and then I sit with it and go, oh, you just don't want to look like a loser. Oh, because you sort of think you're good. Yeah, but you are good. It just means in this piece, you're not really that good, and you need help, and you need to be humble or willing to ask for it. So the interesting piece is if you do work with meditation and you're looking at some difficult stuff, there are ways to keep looking. Don't give up. Keep looking. So here I'm just summarizing that those negative feelings are here for us to learn and face our limitations. And sometimes if you do doubt your value, it's because you haven't been taught. So I work with a lot of clients who haven't been taught this piece of how to sustain their value. Fortunately, I had a lot of dance practice. I had some wonderful teachers. I had some wonderful friends. And we learned how to just feel good feelings in our body. So sustaining your value is multifaceted. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. And I really encourage you to start looking at when you feel naturally good. That's a huge piece. Again, I'll emphasize, if you need support in this piece with the negative feelings to feel your value, get a coach, get some help, get a friend, get someone who really uplifts you. Be around people that inspire you. So the choices that you have are simple when it comes to the negative feelings. Keep focusing on your limitation, or here are the next questions. So write these ones down. To acknowledge your value and ask, acknowledge your value here, and what I'm sharing is just saying, look, I'm a good person. What belief is operating that still holds me small? 2, what can I do to ensure that I no longer focus on this smallness and instead continually see the beauty of who I am? And then finally, when my smallness comes up, what habit will reconnect me to who I truly am? You don't need to know who you truly are. You just know you're not that smallness. So who you truly am or is a mystery. Open to it. What habit will connect you to the mystery that you are? And I've used a myriad of techniques for that one. Sometimes it's a piece of music. Music can really just help you remember those memories that you have, a photo of when you felt truly alive, or a dear person, a loved one. So I've focused a lot on that second myth, and I have in the guide specific 5 pieces actually on the emotional body, and we're going to look at that soon. This final piece I'm looking at with that need, that obsession of you need to get that 6-pack abs or change or make your body better. This is one of the biggest illusions about the physical body, okay? So to put it very briefly today, I have a Loving Relationships membership which focuses on this too, about the sacredness of the body. Your soul chose your body. So if you're a big person, there's a reason. Like Jamila Jamil, she's beautiful, Indian, born in UK. And she's had to go through the 90s where women were meant to be rake thin, and that was the image put out there. She had eating disorder. She broke her back when she was young, and she learned her body was much more than a physical body. She learned the hard way. She broke her back. You don't need to do that. There are ways to worship your body and see it's different. But if you allow the social media and others, or your own mental and emotional dialogue, to torture you, you won't be able to feel the sacredness of your body. So your soul chose your body with all of its limitations, disease, everything, beliefs, all your gifts, so you can grow and so you can play a specific purpose to others in all your relationships. So think about that. Your body, the size of it, the shape of it, the smell of it, everything, the ethnicity, the location, the proximity of you to someone else, that is all part of the soul's plan to get you to experience certain relationships. Your body has an impact on others. Think about that. If you can't think about yourself, think about if your body was not the way it was, how would you have had that other relationship with other people? You wouldn't have. So that is vital, and to stop thinking about it through a physical container. So we treat our bodies like a car, and it's not. It's got the 4 parts of the body. And those 4 parts are giving you clues and messages which are in the guide that you have today. So let's look at those 4 parts of the body. We have the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the soul. I teach on this in more detail in other trainings and work, and I teach about this in the energy body class that I teach live and also online. So when you listen to those 4 parts, you can learn about your body. But often we don't know the messages and the signals, and in the guide today that you can download, it's in the link in the description if you're watching, you can download that guide. In the description you will see how specific things are tied more to the mental body, others to the physical body, others to the emotional body, and some to the soul. The soul's a little bit more tricky. It's not really, it's just that we're not familiar with it. So that's what I've just shared there. That special gift today shares those behaviours of the 4 bodies. And just give you simple questions. They're very simple. Some of you will need more questions than what I've offered, but those simple questions is to help you tune in and simplify. I've worked with intuition myself and others for a while now, and the more questions you ask, it's more like how do I describe it? Do you ever remember making like your first cake and you just started mixing it and you lose the consistency, like a mud pie or something, and you've got the right consistency, and then you keep on adding stuff or flour or water to it, and then it just turns into the wrong consistency? That's what asking and asking and asking questions does. Believe me, I've done it. So we want simplicity, and that's what the guide is also there for. If the questions aren't working for you, you're not going to get a voice coming down from God telling you the answers. But we're going to look now at 3 pieces from the guide and see potential ways that the answers may come. In the guide, I've also mentioned that sometimes you need to just breathe, connect to your heart, ask the question, and then go off into your day and see what happens. Notice what happens in your day. So sometimes you can be watching a TV show or a YouTube video, or a conversation happens with your partner, or an old friend calls you and goes, oh my God, I was thinking about you. Those are the things that Spirit's using to get through to you. But you've asked the question, and that's the law of attraction. You've put it out to the universe, show me, the universe is responding. And we miss those clues. There's like so many clues given to you all day, so many that we're ignoring them because of social medias now. Well, actually, social media can be used by Spirit too, but you have to set their focus for Spirit to communicate with you more clearly. And that's the challenge I'm seeing, that people who work with intuition are sort of overwhelmed by all the messages, and they're kind of not even noticing their own body. So I've focused more on the behaviours that they manifest in thoughts, emotions, and the physical body. So the 3 behaviours I'm going to share before we finish are from the guide. And these ones I've picked particularly because they have a really strong connection to where you might be feeling not able to move beyond loneliness, or feeling disconnect and not really doing anything about it. Apathy is becoming the new cool. And also just overwhelm. I think people are overwhelmed, so they just sort of go, okay, I don't need to respond. You do have to respond to yourself. And then how you respond to others is huge. But without that first connection to self, it's very hard to make an impact when you talk to others or reach out, or even attempt to change the way you relate to others, or attract a different person into your life, a new person, or a love relationship. So this first one I picked because it's specifically like social avoidance, which might be a classic thing that you're facing if you're worried about dating, or if you're concerned, and also I've noticed that some people are feeling more comfortable being alone than in a relationship, which is fine. But the feeling that nobody cares or social avoidance, they're connected. Sometimes social avoidance is from another feeling, but I've picked out that nobody cares one because it's something that generates more depression and states of loneliness that are not going to get you anywhere that you want. Because social avoidance is not the only reason nobody cares. It's because you're not reaching out to people, but you can't think that when you're feeling nobody cares. Okay, the second is a classic I've already mentioned, circular repetitive emotions. They're really easy to pick. And the third one is a more physical thing. It's interruptions and delays. So these interruptions, like the computer breaks down, your cell phone runs out of charge, and your partner loses their job, all these things. Great fun, interruptions and delays. So they're more physical body stuff. So the classic emotional body response of feeling nobody cares, social avoidance. So the question I've got in the guide here is asking yourself, am I isolating to prove a point? And just sit with it. If you meditate on it. Or just write, or just sit with it and then go out and into your day. And that's choice one. Is your emotional body going to control you, or are you going to create a new way to relate to your value? Because the behavior and the action, the new action, is relating to your value. So sometimes isolating is actually a very important part of your life. Being alone does not mean that you're lonely. Sometimes you need to be alone. And what's the point of that? Get into it, because it could actually be the gold mine that you're looking for. The next one from the guide is circular repetitive emotions. Again, this is the emotional body trying to get your attention. Why? Because we've got feelings that need to be attended to. So the only question really, what are you feeling? The next response, which is the new action that you're going to do, is what do you want to do about the feeling? And if you're stuck, get more help, friends, resources, get creative. Because it's too easy for the emotional body to be king these days. Our culture indulges it. But our culture is also inviting you to see that, are you going to let society tell you how to be? So interruptions and delays, like I mentioned before, this is a really interesting one. It's your soul and physical body. And something's not in alignment. Your thoughts, the weather, people you're meant to hook up with that day. So sometimes our soul's busy trying to get us to maneuver into situations, and it's like not the right time, and there's a big traffic jam that stops you getting there. And that sometimes is literally because somebody else has got to meet somebody else, and that traffic jam is allowing that car to get through, or that bike to pass, or that person to walk and not get hit by a car. So when you think about how detailed spirit is, how much spirit's got going on to manipulate our world, so we can all end up being there for that point in time, for that physical moment, for someone to get something they need for their soul to grow, it's quite complex. So often interruptions and delays, like a traffic jam, we could be swearing, or we could be asking the question, what's significant about this delay? I've done this, and I haven't spent all of my life driving. I've spent about a third of it. I've walked a lot without a car. I've lived without a car for periods. So I got to learn that when I sat in traffic and asked questions, I wasn't swearing at anyone. And I also learnt a lot of information, and I started to look at the world differently. I started to look at myself differently and see that that delay was allowing something else to happen when I was asking the question. And I was still focused on traffic. I wasn't meditating. I was just asking. So any delay, a computer interruption, an internet break, a government shutdown, I've seen people break down in some situations. If you can ask this question, have emotions, yes, and then ask this question, there's a lot more gold that comes. And what happens then is you begin to look at yourself moving through your life as if these opportunities or interruptions are opportunities for something to happen, and your soul starts to provoke quite amazing new opportunities for you. This one for me, the interruptions and delays, changed the way I loved computers because I had a lot of problems. And now I have this incredible ease, and I start to look at the interruptions and think, actually, is what I'm putting on the internet appropriate, in alignment with my higher self or the highest good of the people I'm trying to send this stuff to? Changes everything. So if you are curious about that, then check out the guide. There's the guide's quite simple because it doesn't want you to start asking 10,000 questions. I've kept the questions simple for a point. So I'm just going to review very quickly the 3 myths and how working with them differently, seeing them as myths and looking at different ways can change the way you see yourself, will stop you from thinking you should be different, look at your value, and then finally look at how that loving communication to self and spirit will move you through anything, obstacles or emotional body stuff or mental body stuff. So using the law of attraction with the law of manifestation to connect to your soul, see where you have the resistance. And what really helps, I shared this in one of the other videos, is to look at your past, look at your relationship history. What are the patterns? What did you resist? What did you fear happening that did happen? And what do you want to do to stop doing? What do you want to stop doing so you can move forward? So look at the relationship history. What are the patterns? What did you resist? What did you fear happening that did happen? And then what do you want to stop doing so you can move forward? And remember, the big one is to ask, what is the purpose of this relationship? How does it serve my soul? So I'd use that. I kept going back for a while to the yo-yo, but when I actually saw the purpose, it got me out of the emotions. And just be aware, if you're stuck in emotion, you're stuck in the motion, and look at how you can be creative with that. Don't keep punishing yourself as if you're doing something wrong, because you're just stuck in the emotion, and that's human. So look at myth number 2, where we look at the negative emotions. To summarize, at the beginning I said we're going to understand how you limit your value and limit your potential for love. So instead of being stuck in the emotion, what you can do is ask, what does this emotion tell me about what I'm not seeing about my value, gifts and abilities? So that's another question to walk away with today. What does this emotion tell you about what you're not seeing about your value, gifts and abilities? That's when they come up. In the guide, you've also got a few more questions. Just ask what you're feeling so you can apply it to several different situations. And now, the final one is to look at the 4 parts of yourself. So we looked at, in the beginning, how to communicate with yourself in the loving way that moves through difficult situations, and that's to engage with the 4 different parts of your body. So when you push your body away, you can I guarantee you, that is part of what your soul came to resolve in order to love unconditionally. If you've got any issues, like you're comparing your body, you're thinking you're too this, you're too that, that's a piece of what you came to resolve. It may not be at the foreground, but it's a piece. And it may also reflect that with your partner, you are looking to find a relationship where your body is not the first thing that you relate to. Maybe you need to explore creativity or spirituality or some other piece with the partner. Or maybe it's one of the other things that we shared about what you're willing to compromise and give in a relationship. But certainly anything that you resist or push away, you came to accept. So those 4 parts of the body and how you communicate are going to be huge tools for you to start communicating with yourself in a different way. So first, I wanted to just thank you for watching the video so far. And I hope that whatever you showed up wanting, you got this one thing, that this is the treasure map to help you find that dedication, the patience, taking that time and stillness to embrace your worth, your abilities, your gifts, your values, and give you that recipe to rebuild a healthy, joyful relationship with those you love and yourself. So you can start to see where your value is and share it. If you want to be clear on what your purpose is and know your value in 90 days, then it starts with what we learnt today. And I want you to imagine what it would be like in the next 90 days if you could have your loved one acknowledge their love for you and for you to acknowledge and feel how wonderful, able, and valuable a person you are. What would it mean for your life if in the next 90 days, if you were still struggling with feeling lost, not sure of who really is there for you, if anyone really wants to be with you, and you're still worried about who you're going to end up with someday? So I won't sit there too long because I want you to engage in what I'd love you to experience with me today. You can apply what I've shared with you in the video and download that free gift and the guide as well, and have a look at that and email me if there are any questions about the guide, or if you're really wanting the maximum results in the minimum time, then here's what I've got for you. It's a relationship clarity call with me, and you can take the next step in that adventure and dream of love. So the relationship clarity call is free, but it's specifically for people who want to take the next step in clarifying your value, and specifically for people interested in doing work on themselves, not looking for advice. So let me just say, I'm looking for people who are really committed, passionate, ready to take the next step in working with coaching and healing, because that's where I've been able to assist people transform the way they love. So that love just enters their lives and they can overcome hurt and suffering. And as a result, my clients have been able to assist their own family and members of the community. So it's not only calling in the one, it's much bigger ramifications. So this one-on-one coaching is for men and women, and it's really about people looking at making a relationship last and seeing their family benefit as well. You may be busy, but you realize that there's time invested in yourself is what makes that relationship with themselves and others what you really, really, really want. And you're also in a relationship, maybe, but you want to take that specific relationship to the next level and you're struggling with how to make that possible. So it's also for people who've been through breakups and who want to heal from the past and create a different relationship that fulfills your dream of love. It is for people who are single and looking to find out what it takes to make a relationship amazing, last, supportive and loving. And also, if it doesn't last, how to do that, how to get through it, because you'll have the resources to work through that. And I also am looking for people who are excited about learning healing tools that will enable you to appreciate yourself, build that self-value internally, like you'll feel it physically in your body, and that will actually transform the way you love. You'll transform the way you see and feel the energy in your body. I'm really experiencing that now with some clients and pretty surprised. That's where we're working. So who is this not for? It's not for people who are looking for advice, the relationship clarity call. It's not for those who don't want to spend the time, not for people who want to complain or talk a lot about what's wrong about somebody in their life. It's not people in information gathering mode, and it's not people who've got an ideal of romance and are not willing to learn what to do when the going gets tough in a relationship. So if this is resonating for you, I want you to experience and discover the power of authentic love and living a heart-centered life, creating the love you want. This is what that one-on-one coaching over 90 days is designed. And my offer is to have that personal one-on-one relationship clarity call with you and me. And in that call, it's amazing. We begin with where you're at, where you want to go in the bridge to where you want to be, and the difference between the two and how we get there is part of the journey, part of the magic and the mystery, and also what I've been able to enjoy creating with others. So in the description, there is the link. I'm also going to pop it up on the screen as well for those of you watching the video. You can sign up with that link there to get that guide. It's also in the description and in the video below, but that's the link there. And for those of you who are looking to experience that relationship clarity call, you can also look at that clarity call link there. I've got that on the screen as well. So it's in the description if you're looking at the video link now. And for those of you who are on the recording, we can also start to go through any questions that you might have, questions that you're feeling you want to review, and we can look at any other situations that people are going, well, what's the soul purpose in this relationship? Or any other questions you might have about intuition and listening to the heart. It also will be really effective for me if you can, when you're working with the Connecting to Heart guide, if there are specific questions that you might have, I've got the email in there, angela@loveandrelationshipcoach.com, but it would be wonderful if you could send me an email about any of the questions and responses that you may have as well, because that gives me an idea of where you might be stuck in using the guide or what might come out from using the guide that you might have more questions about. So that was the end of the presentation, and I'm just pausing now to see any questions before we finish today. And I wanted to thank you as well for coming to the recording and giving that opportunity to watch those tools that I've shared as well with you on the recording. If there's anything in the notes that you might need to check in with me as well, like some of the questions that you need to ask when you're in a certain behavioural pattern, because there's in the video itself some things that are not in the guide, you can message me either on the Facebook private message or send me an email, angela@loveandrelationshipcoach.com. I'll just put that in there now, angela@loveandrelationshipcoach.com.